Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So, as you will notice, I am in a new location, a new seat, and that is because this is a new video format and hopefully the start of a new series. So, my husband recommended that I call this series Library Archives, and it's so cutesy that I think I have to use it. So, yeah, I hope to have a little chit chat. Well, I mean, it's a monologue, it's just me, about my life and my thoughts on bookish topics. So, if you want to know more about how I came up with this idea and kind of what I'm hoping to go for with this series, stay tuned to the end of the video. I will try to put a timestamp here to jump to for my thoughts on that. Here for our very first episode of Library Archives, I thought we would tackle the topic of rereading or being a rereader. I have always considered myself to be a rereader, to be someone who rereads books. And I'd say this probably started in my childhood. I am lucky enough to have some educators in my family, and my grandma was a reading teacher, so I was always given books as gifts, and we were regular library users. But I think that not only was I constantly rereading the books that we owned, but also I was sort of the perfect age for the like boom in YA. That could kind of be its own whole video topic. But basically, the publication of books geared toward young adults sort of exploded, especially, I think, honestly, I feel like Harry Potter was a huge start of that. But I feel like that wave of publication of young adult titles happened in the early 2000s. So I have always read above my reading level, and there was just a couple years there where the selection was starting to take off, and I was wanting that material, and there really just wasn't much. But also, I can't blame this all on publication of YA books. I also I didn't really have any like other reader friends as a kid, and it never occurred to me to ask a librarian for a recommendation. So for years, a lot of what I would read were the same things I already had read, because I felt that there was a lack of books. I don't I don't know why I felt that way, and um, I would just kind of reread what I already owned. But I would say that kind of changed to some extent when I met some friends in about eighth grade, and they were also book nerds like me. And so I definitely spent some time in eighth grade and in high school with this group of friends who would regularly pass books around. And also by that point, it was that boom of YA had exploded, and so suddenly there were, and also that was when was like Twilight and stuff was coming out, and so that was another series, and the Hunger Games, just after that, were all just boosting the publication houses, the understanding that there were a market for and a demographic to reach with YA books. So to some extent, I feel like I reread as a kid because I felt like there was a lack of books, or I was always rereading my own books. But then I enjoyed rereading books because it always felt like, like visiting an old friend. How cliche. But no, I mean, I really didn't have any problem uh, forgetting in the reread moment of what happened. If I had paused and thought, yeah, I know what happens at the end of this book. Yeah, I would know what happens at the end of the book. But that never bothered me during the rereading experience. And I think that that leads to the other major reason why I have been a rereader, and is probably much more relevant, and is probably what I should have talked about first. But that is that I reread books because I kind of use that as like a mood re-experiencer, stabilizer. When I read books for the first time and I experience a certain set of emotions or a certain set of moods prompted by that book, I know that I can kind of re-experience those emotions when I reread it. So a lot of times in my life when I'm thinking, oh, I really want to read a story where I feel XYZ, instead of trying to find a new to me book that I hope will fulfill those requirements, I frequently will reach for a book I've already read just to kind of dive back in and re-experience those emotions. I don't know if that's like a normal thing to do, but that's definitely how I've kind of treated rereading of books is I know I'm going into it partially to experience the same emotional journey that I had the first time. So yeah, I definitely have some favorites. I've reread some of the series I've already mentioned in this video multiple times. With regards to kind of more recent years, in 2020 I reread the whole Twilight series in anticipation of Midnight Sun coming out. But the only other book that I reread in all of 2020 was a Christina Lauren book, Autoboyography. And I think that's partly because when I started my channel here on BookTube, I felt that there was so much of a push to read what's new and what's coming out, and I was constantly like inundated, flooded with recommendations, and so I constantly wanted to get to those instead of picking up older books. But I definitely have favorites in my life and ones that I wouldn't mind getting back to, and I kind of wanted to do that in 2020 and it just didn't happen. So honestly, I've been thinking about planning a whole month of rereads for me here in 2021. I'm sort of thinking maybe June or July, slash maybe I should just try to like fit one in a month. But I have a lot of favorites that I want to reread, both recent favorites and old favorites, and it's because I want to re-experience those worlds. I actually just here in in February, and now we're into March, I have reread the Daughter of Smoke and Bones series. I read the first book and I just finished the second book here in March. And I've enjoyed rereading those. They definitely had a very strong atmospheric component and emotional component the first time through. So I have enjoyed that. I definitely have seen on this read through potential issues that I never really like noticed the first time through. For the most part, I very infrequently feel that when I reread a book, the second time through is like worse, or I've caught those problems, or my rating usually doesn't change. Maybe is a little more tempered, but only ever by like usually half or 1 star. I've never reread a 5-star book. I have yet to have read a book the first time through and given it 5 stars, and the second time through given it like 2 stars. So I don't know, maybe if I were to reread more, that would happen. So let me know down in the comments if you are a rereader and why you like to reread books, or if you are not a rereader, why you don't like to reread books. I sometimes feel that while I'm enjoying visiting with an old book, a familiar friend, I sometimes feel a little guilty that I know that the number of new to me books that I want to get to is far longer. That list is far longer than any list I could ever actually accomplish or read. So sometimes I feel like, oh, I shouldn't be rereading this book. I already know what happens. I should be getting to a new one, trying to find a new favorite. But I don't know. I guess there's kind of a part of me that's like, why take a chance on a new possible 2-star read when I could reread a known 5-star read? Have you ever had an experience where you've read a book for the first time and gave it 5 stars and then on a reread gave it a much lower rating? If so, let me know down in the comments. So now the time has come for me to discuss why I've started this series. I was thinking about content and creating content, but also watching content. And I was thinking about content that I most enjoyed watching and if I was making any of that. And some of my favorite videos I like instruction, like sort of sit, talk to the camera, here's my latest, kind of update videos. I like those too. But I think some of my favorite content to watch on YouTube is content that is more like personal from people. I really enjoy watching tags because we frequently get to learn about the person as a reader. And I like watching some people's vlogs because I like to get these glimpses into who they are and into their life. I'm just kind of nosy, in addition to their thoughts about their books. So I was thinking, okay, how can I kind of want to make that content. And to some extent, I feel that this series, The Library Archives, is very similar to the content I had started to make with my cousin Nicole at See Nicole Reads. She and I have done a number of sort of bookish discussions. We've called them cousin convos. Sometimes they are buddy reads, and then we have a little mini book club about those books, or sometimes they've just been bookish topics. And those kind of conversations to have are some of my favorite conversations. And I'm interested in people as well as the books they're reading. So I thought, okay, how can I make content that is sort of similar to this, but is from me? And like I said, I was already doing it from, the cousin convos. And another source that I was really enjoying was Noelle from Noelle 7 Pages. She has started a series that's called BookTube Happy Hour. And it's just a sort of live stream show where it's her and she's picking various people from BookTube. And it's a chat, but it's also like a vague like interview kind of format. And it's just really fun because they're talking about books, but it's also very casual and relaxed and personal. Like we get to know Noelle and we get to know whoever her guest is, or guests are. And I really like that content. So I basically wanted to start a little series where I'm talking about my story, my life, my thoughts, my history on various bookish topics. Depending on how well I like this video, or not necessarily how well it does, but depending on some of the feedback I get for this, I would like this to be a series, and I would like this to potentially even go into non-bookish related content, but for now it's just going to be bookish stuff. So if you've made it this far into this video, wow, thank you, appreciate it. That's amazing. Leave a comment down below about future topics you might want to see, any ideas about how I could change things, if you hate this location, and yeah, any suggestions for future bookish topics or non-bookish topics that you would like for me to monologue about, feel free to leave a comment down below. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will check in with you later. Bye. I have no idea about this angle, and I think, I'm rocking the side part. I've never been skinny in my life, so I don't own skinny jeans, but does that mean I'm only half old? Anybody who ever said, find your light, didn't have glasses. Okay. Perfect temperature.